Hi dear friends, we are entering a new video here in the Daoland program, and as you know, I've done a survey just recently and I want to talk a little bit more about some aspects of this survey. This survey was part of an assignment for my doctorate on policy building. That means I am already thinking forward now as a result of that on how my eventual research on the emergency that we are experiencing collectively probably about the future, how to make that as comfortable as possible. There is not much research being done on that outside of the scope of the continuation of that what we already know and where a lot of people are not satisfied to. Whether you're on the left side or on the right side of politics, whether you think governments are reliable or not, whether you think there should be a different kind of system, that capitalism isn't good or that it is great. In all cases, the general tendency is one of insecurity, and that insecurity comes as a full rejection or as an I don't really know, or as a minority, like, oh, everything will be fine. That amount is becoming less. So this is very important to realize. Before we go further, talking about the situation that I want to talk about, where we are at here in the European Union, but also to a degree about what's happening in the rest of the world as a result of that, make sure you first like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet. If you feel like knowing more, there will be a link in the comments for you to follow if you want to participate in this research as a investigated person, or if you want to contribute in another way by finding applicants. Well, you just figure it out when you read down the bottom. Let's now, for now, go back to what I all want to talk about. So I talk about the policy context analysis today. I'm going to talk with you about what are the reasons why a policy need to be changed, why policies need to be changed. And my prime thought on this is like, okay, we have a system where the multitudes, this is us, right? We are the multitudes, are utterly dependent on the capitalization of our needs. We have been put into sort of a feudal consumerism where we as individuals, we are required to consume, and only through financial exchange can we get certain kind of services. While since the French Revolution, and maybe already before that time, there were people talk about the fact that we are supposed to be equal and that we have to have equal opportunities in life, and we have to have certain kind of inalienable rights. The United Nations has made these kind of things, and of course there's always people who try to roll back improvements, as we can experience in this modern time. But in general, we can say, okay, we all accept the fact that we have a particular kind of equality in the sense that we should have the same rights, we should have the same chance for health, happiness, and so on and so on. The reality is that policies are based on what came before. I give you an example of China. China, my favorite study subject, of course, has become communist, and communism is, whatever you want to think about it, it is aiming at least to improve the quality of life for people in general. They are succeeding in that to a very large degree, but it takes a long time before they can undo the bureaucracy of 2,000 years of history. A little bit more even. In the moment when they are going to try to do that, they will, of course, also unhinge their own benefits. Every system has its own form of corruption, and this corruption is possible, according to Plato, the Greek philosopher, because the ruling class has an invested interest in the existing power structures and financial structures and so on. So Plato suggests, and I think that is still one of the greatest political ideas ever, a ruler should not have any economic interest in anything. They should not even have a family interest, so they have to say goodbye to everything. It's the same like when you become a monk. When I became a monk, as part of my oath, I had to let go of my attachment to family, to my finances, and so on and so forth. I had to dedicate everything to the development of my studies and everything that rolls out of it. That means also invest in, getting more people to study with us or with me or whatever kind of things, instead of trying to become rich from what I'm doing. Like many teachers, they are buying houses, cars, whatever kind of things. And of course, I have a family now, and I care a great deal about them, but I have to make sure at the same time that my family is not going to be the motivation behind what I do, right? I have to be motivated by what we can achieve as human beings for the well-being of all human beings, of nature, of animals, that is, of plants, of rocks, of mountains, the landscape as a whole. And there is a lot of work to do, and everybody can do only so much. I cannot reach out in all different kind of aspects. So because health is my specialty, I focus mostly on that. That's also why our Chinese medicine school is focused primarily on the bachelor program so far, and that is the part where we learn Yangshan healthcare, and then we extend that to the widest degree. I know a few of my former students, they have tried to hijack the program, and they've tried to copy it, but they don't have the knowledge base to do that properly, so they get stuck in the TCM context, if anything, and also as a result of that, they are reducing the quality of the future of Chinese medicine as a whole. So this has to do with some things that I also discussed when I was in China itself, is that the problem for the future of these kind of techniques is, well, many. But there are particular kind of things which we can use to develop a particular kind of wisdom, and this wisdom primarily is that everybody should have a base development of their health. They should learn that from an early stage onward, and that early stage onward has to help them their whole life to maintain a particular kind of level of health, and where they can build on by acquiring new knowledge over time. So living in that sense should become, just like education, a lifelong learning process. I have started to work together with particular organizations, also with a German school, so that our bachelor master programs, they can be adapted to each other, and as a result of that we can start growing towards a university. And I have been starting to collect organizations from where we can gradually build our own database to help develop knowledge about these kind of things in a way which is acceptable to both common people as well as policymakers. And this item here is part of that. You have to understand particular kind of things, namely that the expenditure on healthcare was about 1,720 billion in 2023. So in 2025 that was calculated. And it was 10% of the gross domestic product. And as a result of that, you can see that this is a lot of money involved in healthcare. If it is well used, I don't know. So this is not at this moment the point. But among European countries like Germany, it was 11.7, in France 11.5, and in Sweden and Austria also 11.2, and then other countries they were lower than that. So the expenditure per inhabitant between 2013 and 2023 were recorded in the highest expansion in Romania, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Czechia, Estonia, and Croatia, where the expenditure doubled, but they also became part of the European Union. So they had access to more modern technology, and they had more all kind of developments. So this is important to notice also. In 2023, 52.3% of current healthcare expenditure in the European Union was financed by compulsory schemes and savings accounts, and 28.2% by government schemes. The remaining 19.5% was financed by other financial agents, like for instance your own money. We are very lucky that we are not in the United States, where these kind of things are continuously under threat and have to be redecided all the time. But we are growing in that same direction. So that is definitely a case that the governments are pulling back because of capitalization of healthcare. And as a result, that healthcare becomes expensive because it becomes a commodity that needs to be paid for. So profits have to be made. So that is definitely a problem. In 2023, 52.7% of current healthcare expenditure in the European was for curative and rehabilitative care, and 17.8% for medical goods. The remaining 29.5% was for other functions. In 2023, also 36.8% of current healthcare expenditure in the European related to provision by hospitals, 25.6% by providers of ambulatory care, and 16.2% by retailers and other providers of medical goods. The remaining 21.3% was supplied by other providers. In farming, that's another aspect that we have to talk about in policy making, because we're in healthcare, we're not only talking about the medical establishment, which seems to be a primary agent, but we also have to think about our food supply, and we have to think about all kind of other aspects of healthcare, because the healthcare industry is mostly focused on being a service to people, where people have to do little, although the advice is to go do exercise. The exercises being offered often are the kind of exercise that also damage you, through which you need healthcare. Same with food. A lot of food that is being offered is convenient to produce, convenient to eat and process and so on, but it is not necessarily the best kind of food. So these kind of things are very important. When we look at organic farms and about regular farms, this is where I primarily wanted to look at, then we can see that there was a research in Poland actually that showed that organic farms had the highest income due to reduced cost per acre, while the yield of organic farms in respect to conventional farm was about 43% lower. Okay, so when discussing agriculture, we're talking about aspects of the food module in the research program, of course. The medical module is overarching, you can say. So when you talk about medicine junction, we talk about everything overarching. But our food comes from particular kind of places, and we can talk about the economics of it and the productivity of it. I have to place two footnotes. In the past, we are all eating organic food, but then we didn't get older than 35 years old because we didn't know how to keep our food clean and so on. And as a result of that, our personal processing within our home was not optimized. Now we have clean knives. That time we used just stone tools, so to say. So a lot of things have improved, but we are not there yet. There is all kind of European regulation. There's American regulation, which is not that dissimilar. And there is Asian regulation. There's all kinds of regulations which will cause some problems. First of all, the agricultural market is highly subsidized. When you are a farmer, you are going to be subsidized most likely to make sure that you can do your work. The irony, though, is that the financial benefits from organic farming are much higher, while at the same time the productivity benefits of organic farming are much lower. In general, we can say, okay, organic farming has its pitfalls, but productivity-wise, it is about 43% less than regular farming. So that is quite a lot. So that means we need much more surface to equal the amount of food that we produce through industrial farming. On the other hand, the ways of farming that we are using, they are going at the expense of biodiversity, for instance, because of using all kind of pesticides, but also because of artificial fertilizer, and that goes at the expense of the quality of our soil. In general, we can say that the European agriculture is the source of 11% of all greenhouse gases emitted in the European Union, and most of that is by the production of meat. We import a lot of different kind of foodstuffs just to feed our cattle and to feed our chicken and to feed our goats and sheep and pigs. And as a result of that, my personal advice would always be to reduce the intake of meat products, for the simple reason that that will reduce your environmental footprint. Of course, we're already past the point where that will make a lot of impact, but on the long run, it will definitely also help you to slow down the onset of the warming that is taking place, and it is leading to change in climate regions. Ice water coming from Iceland is now at this moment making sure that the northern hemisphere of Europe is going through a cold spell at this moment, through which we have much more snow and ice than we normally have, and not dramatically so, but in a few years' time that might actually be a lot more or maybe a lot less, depending on how things are going to develop. And I don't have any understanding of how that actually goes, but there are a lot of experts online who can tell you exactly about it. There's also people who say, like, see, the snow is coming back, so this is all in flux, there's nothing going on. But that is because these people look at their locality and their memory from when they were very young, but they don't look at the impact of the world as a whole. And that is in agriculture also a problem. They say, okay, but we have good production, so why should we change something? And the thing is that a lot of farmers, because of the subsidizements, they also have a lot of debt because they have started all kinds of things. So they have something to lose, of course, in that process. So in general, the conventional farms' direct costs, they were 32% higher than that of an organic farm. So that is actually quite a lot. Yeah, so in exchange for the reduced production, I don't know if that is a good value, trade value. Yeah, so I think personally that if you can bring the cost down and you have to do less work and you can have maybe less production but a higher profit as a result of that, that would be the option to go to. So any farmer who doesn't go to organic farming has to really look at why that is like that. In my country, there's a lot of arguments about farming being forced to abandon their farm because of the polluting factor of it. From this, you can read how much that polluting factor is. It is actually pretty high. 11% of our national product is a lot. That is, per country is different, but you can understand the Netherlands is a major exporter, the second largest exporter of food produce in the world. So you can imagine that our polluting factor is additionally high because. So that's easy as it is. European agriculture is not the only factor that is so high in pollution. Of course, greenhouse gases as a result of agriculture all over the world, of course, is very high. But the main one are things like ammonia, because of all the farts of all the animals and also of the way how we deal with the ground. On the long term, you have to understand that this kind of pollution can lead to an atmosphere which is more similar like Venus. So then we have a runaway heating process, or the soil can become full of perchlorate, and as a result of that becomes completely infertile, more like on Mars. And people want to move to Mars. I'm not sure if that will be very nice, but that's another thing. You have to read my book to read more about it. Anyway, the human health is directly dependent on the sustainability of the food system, as you know. So at the moment, when we look at the options that we have, the only logical option is reduce subsidizement for farms, reduce pollutants, reduce meat, and go to organic farming. So all the parts that are now used for the many animals, they can then be used for agriculture, and then at that moment we actually up our production. I'm not going to tell people like, look, you have to become vegetarian, but meat is very well replaceable by all kinds of other products, whether you take sesame seed or whether you take pumpkin seeds or whether you take flax seed or duckweed, all these kind of things. They're all very rich in proteins that are not necessarily required to be of animals. Omega-3, omega-6, vitamin A, vitamin K, all these kind of things, they can all be found in plants. And the myth that you can only find them in animals, that is wrong. And the myth that you need to eat more food to get enough of everything, that is also wrong. Because with a smart diet, you can actually eat much less. And as a result of that, you have less cost on the personal level. but also we are more economic with food production. And this is, of course, where our food module is about. This is an important aspect. We really need to talk about these kind of things. So at the moment, when we look at these kind of things, we also create a lot of food waste as a result of the consumer mentality, but also because of all the food that is not going to be used for sales, still needs to be produced for the simple reason that otherwise you don't get enough subsidizement. So that means a lot of food is being bought just to destroy it. And it is also not sent to a third world country to give it to the poor and the hungry. No, we don't do that because that will cost us, because then we are creating false competition to ourselves. Because the food that goes to third world countries where there is hunger is being sold to help organizations. So you can understand the injustice of all these kind of things. I think you can agree with me that we have to go to a different kind of system. Period. As a Taoist, as a Chinese medicine practitioner, I focus very much on the naturalness of all kind of things, and it is also about the aesthetics of all kind of things. A lot of things, they are just being plain ugly because they're modernist in their outlook, very clear lines, plastics, metals, and so on and so forth. While in fact, products that last a longer time, they reduce the production of harmful stuff, and as a result of that, we might have a good impact in our life, but also we can make heirlooms out of the things that we're using from generation to generation. If you look at prehistoric times, people were living in houses for generations after generations after generations. And what we have done in the last, say, 100, 150 years is we started producing more vulnerable housing all the time, with a maximum span of time that the house can stand, because it has to be replaced, because otherwise our builders are unemployed. As a result of that, we have been able to produce more food and more people to make sure that we earn more money from all these kind of things. So we continuously have to grow in our economy, in our population, and so forth to move forward. And in that sense, by going to reappreciation of the durability of things, we're going to have degrowth, of course. And as a result of that, we will have less environmental impact, and we will have less need for the enlargement of our population. There are groups who want to reduce immigrants in their countries, which is fine if they want that, but they have to take the consequence that degrowth then is unmistakably unavoidable. So that means that the prosperity that they go through has to become less, and they have to really go back to a pre-modern time in the country's prosperity and profitability of all kind of businesses. This is just the consequence of these things, and degrowth is great, but we are in a situation where the population is mixed, and we like our mixed marriages because we have mixed children, and these are all part of being vulnerable when you try to get rid of foreigners. Going back to the story of waste, which is the result of our social, consumer and capitalist system, we can see that this is about 127 kilograms per inhabitant per year. So that's 57 million tons of food waste every year. And the associated market value of this waste is about 130 billion euros, which is just getting lost, is being thrown away, burned, dumped somewhere, sent to third world countries to be processed there by poor people, and so on and so forth. Food waste means that all the resources used to produce food, water, soil, energy, and so on, they're also wasted. Also the pollutants and the greenhouse gases related to released during production, transport and marketing, they all contribute to the environmental degradation that we are all complaining about, because we see that the world is degrading. It is getting more dirty, the air is less crisp because of the airplane, the cars, because of all the stuff that we get into the air. The fishes, they taste less because they taste more like plastic, because of all the microplastics in there, and the same for the vegetables and all kind of other products that we are dealing with. The European Union makes assessments about the products that we produce and the impact on the environment and on the, how do you say this, the health of people in general. And they show us that in comparison to other continents on the world, Europe is warming the most fast in the world on average. The climate risks are threatening our energy and food security. They are threatening our ecosystem. They're threatening our infrastructure. That means the road, the rails, and so forth and so forth. The plane connection, airplane connections, the internet connections, and so forth and so forth. Everything that is belonging to infrastructure, our water resources, and financial stability and people's health. The water resources, especially in southern countries, but even in my own country, we are already starting to notice that because of the reduced snow on the mountains in like the Alps, we already have less sweet water here in general. And it means that also here the water mirror of the soil has been changed. And as a result of that, grass is more quickly in the year brown. And also trees start having yellow leaves already in the middle of the summer, which is supposed to be at the end of the summer, at the beginning of the autumn. And that means that over time, a lot of trees, especially food trees, like trees with fruit and stuff like this, they will eventually die. And I'm not even talking about the bees and all these other things that are also being a problem. There are a lot of solutions in Chinese agriculture. For instance, they have found that if people do rice cultivation, which we don't do, then that leads to more communal building of society. That means that we more think about other people, and as a result that we are more willing to cooperate with each other to resolve problems. While in Western countries where we eat mostly grain, the history of grain farming is more individual, and that leads to more individualistic people, and as a result that less willingness to cooperate with each other to resolve problems. And we have to overcome that because in essence, we as human beings, we are people, right? And that means that because of being able to talk and to negotiate, to come to a consensus, we can eventually come to an understanding that no matter if climate change is a real thing or not a real thing, whether healthcare is good or not good, and so forth, we have to come to a consensus where we have to gradually, maybe over generations, model the reality of healthcare. From a Taoist perspective, definitely. From a Chinese medicine perspective, definitely. Teaching everybody, as Zhang Xiaofen suggested, how to take care of their own health is the best healthcare policy. To sell insurances is not the best policy. To have healthcare methods available to everyone is a good policy. To sell these for a profit is not a good policy. It's the same for education. Education, we all need education to keep up with the changes of our world, but also to make sure that we progress in the process of safeguarding nature, climate, our own health, and our own society, so that we can have safe and comfortable lives, and we can develop ourselves as a species towards whatever we want to eventually become. We don't have a clue. We just hobble forward, but we come to a point right now that because of the destructiveness of our activities, our wars, and so on and so forth, it becomes more and more important to not leave it to the individual up there on top in governments to decide what we can and what we cannot do, but it becomes more and more important to actually really escape the, what do you call it, the feudal cycle of having rich people and having poor people. Poor people who get paid for their services by these rich people. And as a result of that, continuously staying into this lack of mobile social mobility, and as a result of that also in lack of actual improvement. Yeah, sure, we're doing better than before the First and the Second World War in the sense of the things that we have, but we are not necessarily doing better in health. We're not necessarily doing better in happiness or anything else. I'm not saying that my ancestors were happier than I am, because I think I'm living in a privileged time, because we are developing this option to work together and to gradually develop a better world. And a better world means that everybody can do their own thing. If that would be because of an authoritarian regime, which I'm not a favor of, or because of an anarchistic consensus, like in syndicalation or in communal communities, we need a global approach. We cannot anymore, with everything that we know, think only about our local structure, unless when we understand that we have to destroy all our technology and knowledge structures and go back into the isolation of the caveman people. And I don't think anybody wants that. I don't want that. I'm not Pol Pot in that sense that everybody has to come back to farming or something. We live in the kind of society that we live in, but that means that we have to be more specific and more directed towards what we need to do. And that means that the policies that we have, and this is then just about Europe, right? The policies that we have are the seed material for the development of any kind of medicine. So when we talk about Chinese medicine, sure, Chinese medicine is great because of all kinds of things that it does. Like Western medicine has its good sides and its bad sides, but to negotiate about these things and how that actually works and how that can work from the base upward, that is the most important part, because we all know by now that if you go to the gym, you feel great, but you need all kind of products to be able to keep on feeling great. That is also why they sell you all these products. But also the chances that you get into physical trauma as a result of the gym and therefore will finance the career of a physiotherapist. This is also a pretty large chance. Because of doing hard work, you exhaust your body. It's the same like when we exhaust the planet. We do not get any healthier because of that. So the situation as it is in the European Union or in the Americas or in the Asian countries or in the African countries is basically similar to how we deal with our own bodies, in the sense that we keep exhausting it and we do not understand the ecology and the economy of health. So I will make more videos this year about this topic. I have a lot of things that I want to talk with you about, and I hope that you will sign up as a subscriber for this channel and that you maybe sponsor me through our Patreon, or that you come to follow courses, or that you sign up for our research, because these are the things through which I can help you best, because I think you have something to gain from my program and I have something to gain from your participation by being able to reach more people. And this is a big concern for me. I maybe only have 1,000 years left to work on this, and I don't think that is going to be enough. So we need to have enough people involved in this kind of things so that we all can keep on going with this for the next, say, 10,000, 20,000 years until humans are more mature.